if you do 10 sessions on something, you're going to be at least 60, 70% capable of whatever the activity is. Not saying you're going to go from 90 to 91 to 99. That's a real deep mastery. But once you understand that, you start to realize like, hey, if I can go from 0 to 1, that is exponential. That is exponential growth. And I think that's so empowering to a lot of people.
Hello, Jordan. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Asha.
Pleasure. So I want to start with a question that I ask everybody as we start an episode. What is something that at some point felt impossible for you and now is your new normal?
Something that felt impossible. I would probably go, my first initial thought was the marathon, because I ran the marathon. I've ran 2 of them. I wouldn't say that's my new normal, but the new normal one, I would go with the podcast. The first time I did the podcast, it was very interesting. It was 2020. I was doing 75 hard. And what ended up happening was I made space and we ended up going to this airplane show. And we went to this Naples airplane show. And what ended up happening was Naples at Florida is a very small airport. And we go in there and they have all these airplanes outside, but inside they have a World War II museum. And I go in there and I'm like, what is going on here? And the guy working there is like, hey, you should read about this guy from the Vietnam War. So I started reading about him, and his name was Wayne Ogden Smith, 7-year prisoner of war, created an incredible company afterwards. And I go, this guy sounds awesome. Like I'd love to like hear more about him. And the guy looks at me and does his old man, because he's like 75. He does his old man chuckle and he's like, that's me. And in that moment, I go, I have a podcast. I'd love to have you on. And what ended up happening was we talked for like 15 minutes. And then the next week, we ended up going to his house and we literally recorded on my phone. And what ended up happening was that was like 2 weeks before COVID. And then COVID hit and everyone started going into these weird periods. So I started recording more in-person episodes with people. And I started realizing the value of that. And then what I realized was that I can get to high-level people virtually, because most of the time they want to get on other platforms. They want to have people hear their story. They want to talk to people. And now I've done over 200 plus podcasts. I literally did one this morning. I'm doing one this afternoon. And it's made me realize that the more we do an activity, the better we get at it, 1. And then 2, you start not having that urge of, it's so impossible. I can't do this. It's only impossible in our mind.
Okay. You're bringing up some really good points here. I'm pretty sure we're going to touch on 75 hard as well, since that's what a lot of people know me for. But what you said about the more we do, the better we get. It's something that I think in many people's minds as they're listening, it might be that, oh, easier said than done. Duh, makes sense. But even in your experience, did you have a time when you actually didn't think that? And what has helped you in your experience to actually shift it where you know that, well, if I want to get better, I just need to do it more? Because a lot of times I think the initial thought is, well, I'm not there yet. What if I fail? I don't know what I'm doing. So what's your process there?
My biggest thought on that is that we can always go back to our original place. So the biggest time this happened with me was in 2020. And we're having COVID, and this is when I'm starting to record some episodes in person. And what I realized was I traveled, but like I grew up in Jersey and I came down to Tampa, Florida for school, and I ended up living there for 2 years. And what I realized was, I'm like, do I live in Tampa or do I like Tampa? And I didn't have the context for that. So my thought was, give up my lease and go explore and go live in a place a month at a time. So I started living in Colorado for a month. I lived in Utah for 3 weeks. And I did this all with a girl that I was dating for like 2 months. We started becoming girlfriend, and now she's my wife. So it ended up being an incredible story. But we ended up traveling for 8 months. And what that opened my eyes to is that no matter what we do, if we have a vision and we push hard enough, we will be able to accomplish that. And what I mean by that is that when you're going through this version, the biggest thing about thinking something's impossible is that we haven't tried it yet. So there's that big lag. Like for me, another one I had was I started getting into Muay Thai. And I was so intimidated the first class that me and my buddy did it the first class. I didn't sign up for 4 months. And then I suddenly went back and I was like, hey, like, I'd like to do this because I thought, oh, this is terrible. Like, I hate this. I don't like punching. I don't like the violence. I don't like any of this. But then I started to learn that it's about body control and it's about understanding yourself in motion. And what I'm getting at is that whenever you do something for the first time, like, there's so many things that we have, like, we're born with no experiences and we start to get more and more experiences, but we start to stay in that comfort zone. So it's how do we push ourselves to that uncomfortable area? Like, so for me, for example, I've done over 200 podcasts. I just started being like, this year I have to guest on more podcasts. So this is like my fifth one this year. And it's like, it's a different side of the page. You're on a different thing. And it's a little uncomfortable, but you put yourself through that because where there's uncomfortability, there's growth. And whether it's growing and being like, I don't like this or I do like this, you're learning more about yourself. And that's my true end goal, which is how do I learn to become my authentic self?
Um, I really like what you said about don't like or do like, because it's something that I keep talking about all the time, where the moment you think you know yourself, you're kind of like stopping your growth because you don't question things, you don't try new things. And the best way to learn about what you do or don't like is to actually do it. And ideally not do it once, because I think even like with the with several even like for me running, I still can't say that I like it, even though I have finished 4 half marathons. I'm currently training for a marathon. Those definitely are not going to be my last races. I don't like running. I usually say, like, I don't use the word hate. I say I dislike it with passion. And with that, it's kind of like I still don't see myself as a runner. I literally went to run before recording this, and I am definitely, but I am getting better. And it's also for me, I think it's something that we assume that, oh, if you do it a lot, you must like it, kind of thing. But also the way I approach it is I learn a lot about myself by doing things that I don't like to do and pushing myself to do. I don't like the word pushing anymore because it sounds like a bit toxic, but it's kind of like overcoming and facing and doing things that once felt impossible. Where I agree to you, like for me, I don't think that half marathon or like half Ironman now is my new normal. But it definitely isn't as intimidating, where I know that, well, I can do it. And even if I still don't believe that I did it, I have medal that is a proof that, listen, buddy, you actually did it. Like, it's a
Yes.
reality now. And
Yes.
one thing that I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned vision, and it's something that uh, once you have it, you know how powerful it can be. But I think a lot of people might be in a place where they feel lost, they feel stuck, they don't really have any clear vision. Do you have what helped you to create that vision where it's compelling enough, where it actually kind of pulls you into action? And what can somebody listening do to create their own, or find what is it that I actually want to go towards, strive towards?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Edwards Consulting, when I started it, it was really just a project for myself. And what ended up happening was I started to see different people living different lives. And I realized that you can take like a Warren Buffett, right? He's lived his own life, but he lives in the same house that he's lived in forever. You have your parents, you have colleagues that you have celebrities, you have all these different people, and you realize that we all have the same experience, but how do we make ours unique and different and force that? So one of the ways I started doing that was breaking my life into 5 areas. So I start off with everyone with the 5 year vision. And the reason for that, it's not to accomplish the 5 year goal, but it's to have a North Star. And whether that's North Star is I want to save a certain amount of money, or whether I want to make a certain amount of money, or whether I want to travel a certain amount of places, because it's much easier to go, hey, I'd love to visit 5 countries in 5 years. Great. That's a fantastic, admirable goal. And it doesn't feel intimidating. You know what I mean? And you start to realize, like, hey, if I break this down over a period, I'm going to be able to accomplish this. So instead of that constant reset every 1 year, we do constant resets every 5 years because you start to see what directions you want to go. You can always change it, you can always reevaluate it, but at least give it that effort and that trying, because when you do that, I think it makes all the difference. The other really big thing is, and you mentioned about running, is I think when you get better at something, you start to like it more.
Oh
like,
yeah, definitely.
like there is so many times where I've done stuff where I'm like, oh, I didn't like that. And it was the first time, but then you start to get better and you're like, I like this. And it's getting past that point. And the biggest example I have is my wife, she did we went skiing. She's from Florida. Florida is very sunny, beaches. She's never seen snow before. And she went skiing and she had it's challenging. Like she did not have the best success, but like the thing to realize is that you just have to sit there and go, I've done this 0 times. I'm going to suck at this. And if you admit that you're bad at something, that is such an ego relief of like, because the biggest issue I find is that you're jumping from one thing to another thing to another thing. So as you go in life, you get further and further along and you start to realize that you're like, wow, I've done 200 podcasts. I'm very good at podcasting. Cool. Where's an area in my life where I can feel like a beginner? And I started to really step into this because as you feel like a beginner, that's where the learning is. Like that's where you're able to grow and that's where you're able to do these new things for yourself.
Yeah, and I think even like with that beginner mindset, at the beginning you have the most growth, or it's easier to measure it. Because at the podcasting, right now you're still growing, but it's like
Increment. Yeah,
0.1%.
yeah,
It's like it's really, really tiny. Because you're already at like high level, and that's where it yeah, it's interesting that beginner mind. I actually like note on that on Muay Thai. It's one of the things that I also want to do this year. I need to be careful with like the injuries because of the Ironman coming up and marathons coming up, and I still have all the injuries. And basketball is pretty aggressive sport where after last tournament, we literally like in our group chat, we were sending pictures of our bruises. Um, so, but it's definitely something that I know like for me, I have had it in my mind for several years. But at this point, I'm in a place where I know that this year is happening. I already know the place that I'm going to go to. I have contacted the trainer. Um, it's just about being really mindful of the injuries, knowing that
yeah.
endurance sport it's deadly. It's another beast. But um, with admitting you're bad at something, I'm thinking, what is it that? Well, one is ego that could get in a way. Um, but why is it that you think it's so important for us to admit that, or be not even admit that we're bad, but in some sense be true to ourselves, be honest, be authentic, and in some ways vulnerable, being like, listen, like even with my running, I keep telling people, if I can do this like running stuff, anybody can do it. I'm like proper slow. I'm really slow. Like I finished my first half marathon second to last. And when people are like, oh, you're so you're and I'm like, I'm not that good. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not. I
I
am
think the
getting better, but I'm not like
I think
runner,
the
runner.
biggest thing is that in everyone else's mind, they sit there and go, she's probably running it in an hour and a half. And you're like, how could she run in an hour? And what people don't realize, and I've literally taken clients from not running at all to running a half marathon, and it's so empowering for them. And the reason cardio is so empowering is because it's the one of the quickest things that you can improve on. Like week over week, you can get better, you can run a little bit further, and you start to build up that cardiovascular, and it's one of the fastest things. So you see progress, so you feel the growth. And what I found is that a lot of people, they sit there and they try to run their 1 mile. Like if your 1 mile pace is like 10 minutes or 8 minutes or 7 minutes, they're like, I have to run at 13 miles for 7 minutes. And it's like, no, man, I slow down. Like I could probably run like an 8 minute mile. I slow down to like a 10, 11 minute mile because you're running a long time and you can't be so hard on yourself because you're going to an area you haven't gone before. And that's why in running training, like the biggest things are run faster or run longer. And when you're doing both of those, like you're not going to do both of them at the same time. You're going to pick one and or pick the other. And it's so important to do because what ends up happening is the reason the beginner mindset's really, really critical is because we get to a certain age, and usually it's around like 21, 22, 23, 24, and we just stop growing. there's many people that have lived the same life 40 years in a row, and that's okay. That's just not what I want, and I don't think the audience really wants that, and that's why they're listening, is because they wanna live a different life. They wanna have a new experience, and the only way to have those is by doing new things, talking to new people, listening to new people and new ideas, which is why it's so awesome that there's podcasts now, because you can hear these different people and these different perspectives. And I think the frame of being like, hey, like you said, vulnerability, like literally shielding the vulnerability and being like, I'm not good at this. And I'm still gonna try it. Like I just did this week, I did a jujitsu class, and it was my first time ever doing
How is that?
jujitsu. I was terrible. And the guy's like, throw this guy on the ground. I literally the next day, my side was hurting. I'm like, I don't know if I like this. But as you mentioned, I grew exponentially in comparison to the Muay Thai that I've been doing twice a week for over a year. You know what I mean? Because in those first 10 sessions, you get to like if you do 10 sessions on something, you're going to be at least 60, 70% capable of whatever the activity is. Not saying you're going to go from 90 to 91 to 99. Like like you said, that's a real deep mastery. But once you understand that, you start to realize like, hey, if I can go from 0 to 1, that is exponential. That is exponential growth. And I think that's so empowering to a lot of people.
I wanted to add on what you said about the pace. It's actually something that is important to keep in mind that um, do you go at your pace, compare yourself to yourself? Because for me, it's like if I now say, I actually have like good example with that half marathon. So I was running at the end with one German guy. So he hadn't run for 6 months, and I have been running like for six. Well, at that point, actually, I did the math. I had trained total only 2 months. The actual running, I did only 2 months, and we're running at the end, and we're both dying, and I said to him, imagine we're like royalties. The whole city is shut down just for us. They're just
Yes.
waiting on us. And and it's kind of that shift in perspective where like before I would be in a place where I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody sees I'm the last and I'm slow and this whole thing. Instead I was like, oh, we're like royalties. The whole city shut down just for us. And we're just like cruising at our own pace and they're waiting on us. And it's something that I think is important to keep in mind that even like in my case, um the there was a time when I didn't run. There were like many reasons why I didn't run, but I didn't run at all. Then I started to run, but I still had that belief that I can't do long distances. Then I did my first long distance. Now click, I unlocked the possibility of doing half Ironman. Then I finished half Ironman, and now like most likely once I finish marathon, it's already like, well, maybe I could do Ironman as well. And and that's where it's instead of focusing on somebody else's journey, focus on your own. Because me versus somebody who doesn't have any of those limiting beliefs around like running or whatever might be the case, or they might be naturally good runners, they have to overcome way less than I do to get to a certain level. So it's like instead of focusing on, oh, there's so much ahead of me or whatever might be the case, I'm like, okay, I'm ahead of where I was yesterday, where I was
Yes.
last year, where I was like 5 years ago. So it's really important to put things in perspective. And again, easier said than done because we live in an online world where everything is compared and you see how well everybody's doing because not nobody, but the majority of people don't really want to put out their real selves. They want to put out the
Yes.
polished version of themselves. Um, but one question that I had, or maybe one topic that we could touch on that you mentioned would be perfection, because I think a lot of times perfection might be getting in a way of actually starting to do, because it's kind of like before you even start, you already see what will go wrong. And because it's not going to be perfect, you don't even start. Or another thing that I see a lot of people have, myself including at one point, is you want to map everything out from A to Z. That's what I learned about my podcast. Initially, it's like, oh, I want to map everything out or whatever might be the case. And then what happens is once you start to do it, and I had the same thing with Half Ironman, you learn way more as you're
Yes.
actually doing it. That's the first thing. But also, you can't predict what will go wrong because you don't know what you don't know. And you only
Yes.
learn what you don't know as you do it. Can you
Yes.
talk a bit more on that, like perfection and wanting to like have everything go smoothly, and how to navigate it when life happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, and like everything you were saying made me think about redefining success. Like we have this idea that success is like when I say success to you, what do you think of? Like in normal capacity of success, like most people, like what do you think of success?
My first thought was like not losing.
Okay.
Kind of that, like no failure, everything goes smoothly, and that's kind of success. It's like all doors open for you. It's but I'm thinking from perspective of what I think I have learned a lot about.
Yeah,
It's kind of, yeah.
I would definitely say it has because I would say in America, success is I have multi-million dollars, I have this big house, I have this nice car, I have a family, I have a white picket fence. That is the American dream. That is what they've been selling for years. And the whole point of redefining this is going like, wait a second, are we just working for the stuff, or are we actually defining what we think is success? And I think there's a big conversation going on about this. What is truly success? And I think that's a great question for the audience to think about is like, what is success to you? Because if you start to think success to me is completing a half Ironman, then you're successful. Like we're all on our own journey. If success is, hey, I want to be able to do this activity, that's success. So like to me, that's how I get past the perfectionism. Cause if you're sitting there trying to figure, like I told you, the first 6 episodes of the podcast, I didn't release. Like I recorded them and I just had them. And then I was like, oh wait, I have like six. Maybe I can start releasing some of these and like get a schedule. And then I released them. I didn't release them on YouTube. I just released them through this hosting platform. And then I started to get clips. Like, and that was like a year later after I did 30 episodes. I'm like, I'll start clipping. Then there was like an AI clipper. And then there was like all these different things. And then there's a blog. And then there's a writing. Like, people try to overthink all of this because there's so many steps to everything we do. And it's not always a straight line. It's not always easy either. And having someone hold you accountable, I think helps you a lot more because when you're sitting there going like, hey, this is something I really want to get done, this is something I want to accomplish, this is something I want to do, we can say it to ourselves, but it's very hard to implement on a day to day. That's why I respect you so much for going, I'm doing 75 hard, I'm doing the half Ironman, I'm doing, because it's hard to hold yourself accountable. And even you're like, hey, I have other people that want to join. Like you build that community because the community helps you get past the perfectionism. And like we were talking previous to this call, there are Facebook groups with everything and anything that can help you for whatever you're looking for. So if it's like, I have a fear of starting a family, you're not going to know how to take care of the kid. No one was ever trained on that. You could obviously do some classes, talk to your parents or like whatever it is, you can learn a little bit, but there's not a whole lot about that. There's also like, how do you get married? How do you split? How do you think about money? How do you do all these things? There's all unknowns. And the funny thing is that we deem success the front portion of it, like what's our job? When in reality, success is everything on the back end. It's like, how do we handle money? How do we handle our relationships? How do we deepen them? How do we spend time doing the things we actually want to accomplish? How do we focus on growth? How do we know what growth is to us? And how do we try these new things?
Yeah, I even like what you said about the job. It's something that in some ways, it's also I have had like a conversation with one of my clients where he said like I feel kind of ca- having like conflict with myself because I want to build this business. I want to go all in, but I know that for me to do that or get it to the level that I would want to, or what he thought he wants to, I need to sacrifice my time with my family. But at the same time, he's on a place where he actually starts to value family a lot, and he wants to spend time with them. And it's kind of like, oh, I need to choose between the two, and it's like, well, first of all, you don't have to. You can design your life the way you want it to be, but also it's like what you think is super important for you, or that you have been attaching your identity to, that, oh, I need to accomplish this, I need to be this. Priorities change, focus changes, but it also doesn't mean that you now have to kill one dream for another. You can find a way to mix them together and design your life the way you want it to be. And it's, for me, it's been like really interesting where it's kind of like I would catch myself focusing on like one area that I'm like, oh, I'm not happy with it or I don't like it. And then I'm like, I don't see everything else that's going for me. And it's so easy to get distracted because you see everything that's advertised the way you should be, what you should focus on. But then a lot of times you don't really see that people would advertise as much. Take care of your mental health. Is what you're doing actually fulfilling? Are you actually connected with people in your life? Have you taken care of your health? So all of those things, it's in some ways it's so beautiful that you literally can design the person you want to be and the life that you want to have, but also it comes back to that vision and asking yourself like what is it that I want, not somebody else. Like what is it that I value? Like do you want to do a 9 to 5? If you like it, go for it. um but is that something you want to do? And even if the job that you have, are you playing it safe, or is that something you truly enjoy or you want to do? And it's and I think it's easier said than done because it's a tricky place to navigate, where even finding yourself, connecting with yourself, like do you have any advice maybe there on how to actually identify what is it, let's say somebody listening, what is it that I like, what is it that I want, how to actually even create that 5-year vision, especially if they have been, which I think for the most part we all have, been surrounded by this environment that is like, you should have this, you should have this is what you need, So how to find yourself amongst all the noise around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just back to your point, I'm going to get to that in a second, but back to your point about the client, where he's like, I need to spend more time with my family and I'm sacrificing that time. So it becomes really interesting because you start to think about it and you're like, oh, what is family time? You know what I mean? And I think that there's a definition for all of this. Like, is it that eating dinner with your family? I would say that's quality time, right? Is sitting on the couch watching rom coms a family time? I would say that's a lower level family time. So there's levels to all of this. And what I think to help people really define what they want is a framework. You need to identify your pillars. So, like I said, with Edwards Consulting, it's mental health, physical health, community service philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And the reason it's those five is because what ends up happening is I'd be like, Austria, 5-year vision, what do you want? You start naming off all the things. Okay, financially, how much do you want? Mental health wise, what do you want? Like, what are you looking for? Physical health. And then once you define your physical health and you're like, oh, for me, physical health is like being able to run 5 miles, do 10 pull ups, and lift my body, bench press my body weight 10 times. You're at your success. And like once you redefine all of this stuff and you get really granular, I think it's so important because then you start to measure and monitor. And in these different areas, then you can start to see. So measuring and monitoring is basically picking an area and then picking something that's like a good indicator on it. So like if you want to build a podcast, maybe measure and monitoring once a month, seeing did I do 4 podcasts? Great or no? Okay. Then you can kind of go, why didn't I? Did I have trouble finding the guests? Did I have trouble with this? And so that's my whole point is that when you're looking at this vision, you need to set the vision and then you need to hold yourself accountable. So that creation of the vision is really just figuring out what you desire. And if you're like, I don't know what I desire, then I'd recommend going and trying 20 different things. Like literally each week, try one new thing. Like I had a client and he's like, I don't know what I think about religion. And I go, great. How do you think you can overcome that? And he's like, I don't know. And that's our classic go to answer. What I said to him was, why not for the next 8 weeks, you go to 8 different religions? He's like, what? For the next 8 weeks, go to 8 different religions. Go to Judaism, go to Hinduism, go to Catholic, go to any religion you want. Like, go to all of them and go and see which community calls to you. What do you know? A year and a half later, he's like, I'm a board member at the church. I really enjoy the church because he gave himself that time to explore. So, like I'm telling you, like with my location, like in Tampa, I explored 8 different locations. We lived in like 8, 10 spots over that 8 month period. And that allowed me to learn so much more about myself. So, it's this idea of you don't know, you have to go out there and not say, I like this because I like it, but it's like, I like this, but I need to try other things. Because the more things you try, then you're going to force yourself one way or the other to see if you enjoy it or if you don't. And I think that's such an empowering thing because we sit here and we go, I'm a financial analyst. And it's like, really, man? Like, is that your goal? And they're like, yep. And it's like, did you choose that goal or is that just goal like just come to you? You know what I mean? And when you have that intentionality, you start developing the life you're looking for. Like I'm already 10 years ahead of where I want to be life wise because I'm thinking about it. So what I mean by that is like I've decided like I just got married in November and we were like,
Congratulations.
hey, I'd really like thank you. And we're really like, I'd like to have a remote life. Okay, what does that entail? That entails probably working on some remote things so that you can build that lifestyle. And then it's like, okay, what do you want to do next? Do you want to have a second home? Do you want to think about that? I'm like, I don't know. So for me, I was like, last year, me and Madison ended up going to Europe for 7 weeks because we're like,
Where did you
it's
go?
we went to Italy,
Nice.
Spain, Portugal, France, London, and it was the whole reason for going was we were sitting there and we're like, "Hey, we have friends getting second homes, which is incredible. Like, super amen to them." But it's like now you have two things that you're paying for no matter what. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, "What if I could just leave my place for a month and a half and just go explore?" And the freedom you get, and then the other big thing for that was like our relationship blossomed because now we're both going to places and we have no friends. Like we have no friends. So you have to make friends or you have to just hang out with each other, which you get to really enjoy your partner and you're going through these challenging dynamics. So you start to think about like some people are like, the other big thing to starting this vision is I would also figure out not what you believe is possible, but what is actually possible. So what I mean by that is most people go, I'm going to go on vacation for a week. And like in 2022, we went to Europe for 1 week. We went to Iceland and London. It was so fast. We did 4 flights. It was an amazing trip. Like we got to see the Queen's funeral. Like the timing ended up being really good, but it was a lot. Like we were tired. We're like, I don't want to travel like that. I want to travel slower. And you learn these things by doing, like you were saying. So if you can go out there and just try new things. So I would do one new thing a week. And whether that's go to one Muay Thai class, go to iFly, go on a walk, go on a hike, do something you wouldn't normally do because the whole way to learn about yourself is to break your routine. So for me, I do podcasts. Like I literally did a podcast with a guy this morning. He's from Dubai. You're from Estonia. Like you're living in Estonia. I'm in Tampa, Florida. Like, how am I talking to these people? And it's only because of the podcast and only because of the internet that it's all possible. So that I think that's just such an empowering thing.
What do you think gets in a way? Because what you say, like, sounds great, but what gets in the way of people actually exploring even that, like, one thing a week? Like, what is it that is getting in their way?
It's the self-doubt. Absolutely think that. It's that ability to drop your ego and go, I'm gonna be bad at this. And I don't know the people and I don't feel comfortable and I'm getting weird. And that's when you know you're on the right path. When you go to a place and you're like, I don't feel like I fit in. I love that because that's where the growth is. You know what I mean? Like I've had groups that I've been part of for five 5 plus years and I was like, I'm not getting anything from this. I'm talking to the same people. We're having the same low level conversation. And it's not like like it's one thing if you're in a group and there's new conversations constantly, that allows you to develop and expand your mindset. But when you're having the same conversation over and over again, and it's like, how are you? Good, good. It's for me, it was always the chase of how do I have deep conversations? And I'm having surface level conversations. It's not aiding me. So that's where I realized for me, I was like, oh, this podcast is great. I get to talk to people. I'm curious. Because as a young kid, I remember one of my mom's friends is like, she started calling me what because I would ask so many questions. So it was like I was penalized for that. But what actually the truth is in the podcast framework, I'm promoted because of that, because I ask questions and I'm curious and I'm learning. So I think it's really overcoming this. I'm the best at everything. I'm super accomplished. I'm super no, you have to go to the beginner level. You have to reset yourself. And you might be great. And the way I think about this in a framework of like, so you rate yourself in different areas. So like the podcast, I might be like a 7 out of 10. But if I do the Muay Thai, maybe I'm a 4 out of 10. Or I do something brand new that I've never done before. Like like the half Ironman thing intimidates me because swimming, I'm like, I've swam before, but like
And
swimming
there's
that
and
far,
there's some jellyfishes there as
I'm
well.
like, oh no, like that scares me. Like that's I'm super impressed with that because like I have a buddy who's like, yeah, let's do this. Not an Ironman, it's like a mini triathlon. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to swim, bro. Like, I know how to swim, but I don't swim that well, and it tires me out. And I, because I haven't done it enough. And it's that fear. And when you're feeling that fear, you have to step into that fear and break through.
Yeah, and it's
Because,
also different with like swimming to swim out like open water swimming. Very different.
yeah, I'm terrified. But that's why I
Yeah.
know I have to do it. Like, and that's why I give you so much props because it's like the running's one thing. I'm like, you know, at least where you're at. The swimming's like, I hope I survive.
It's so interesting how for all of like for me swimming was the easiest part because it's the shortest. Of course, like I actually did my first outdoor swim week before the race. So actually like I had a call with a client of mine like week before, and he has finished. And half Ironman, and he was like, have you your nutrition? Did you sort it out?" I'm like, "No." Have you? And nutrition is super important in endurance. Like your
Yeah.
body is just running out of energy. And then like he was like, "Did you try your transitions?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "You have to do it. Like you have to do those things." And that was the first time when I was like, shit, I don't know if I got it. And like then I literally like after that call I went, I don't know where I had this idea from. I took like before and after pictures and compared them. There has been like 80 something days in between. And the difference was so big. Because like
Yes.
on socials, I would have people comment like, "Oh, you look so different," and I was like, "Yeah, but I don't see it on like weight." I'm like, "Sure," but I was like, I'm not sure there's that big of a difference. When I looked at the pictures, I'm like, "Oh, I'm already winning." That was the first
Yes.
thought, and then I was like, "Okay, let's go to YouTube. Let's check the transitions," which I understood why he talked about it because the first 30 kilometers on the bike, I had jelly legs. They were done. And with the same swim, the same thing. I did only 2 open water swims. First one actually was fine because there was no jellyfishes. Second day I went in, it's like you don't know when you're gonna touch them. I'm fine with touching them if I see them and I know I'm gonna touch it, but you're swimming out of nowhere, it's like you kind of like touch something and then you just see bubbles come up. And it was so annoying. My friend was like making fun of me, and because she grew up with like legs to sea, so she's used to that. And I did that after 10 minutes. I literally got up and I was about to get out. And she came to sit literally on the beach to look after like my stuff. And I'm walking out and I had this self talk with myself. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to deal with it on the race day. I don't want to deal with these jellyfishes. They're just like literally getting, I got some like in my face and I was like, that's it. And as I'm walking out, I'm like, listen, your friend came here to support you. And like, it's been only 10 minutes. Just like, go back, do your swim, just deal with it kind of thing. But like through doing those things, it's kind of like you face it. And on the race day, there were a lot of them. And I hadn't swam with a lot of people in the water. That's another thing. You have elbows, you have knees, you have legs. So especially on the corners when you turn, that's when everybody is kind of like getting together, and then you all go on that like turn. And I was fine on the race. They actually had my best swim time. And but for you, you're like, I don't like swim. For me, it's a running. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do run. And at that time, I still have it. Like I had the right calf injury where, like last April, when I was doing the half marathon, 7K in the half marathon, like I'm not even 1/3 in, my calf just terrible pain. I couldn't, and it was in Madrid, so it was like kind of like up and down, uphill. I can't run at all. I can
Yes.
barely walk. I don't know how I finished the run, but since then it's been giving me issues where it's kind of like my whole leg shuts down and gets in pain
Oh wow.
from like calf to hamstring to glute, like the whole leg. And it still like shows up once in a while. It's less intense, but I haven't done long distances. But through that, like it's interesting that for you it's swimming. For me, it's like running, and we have different reasoning behind it, which is really interesting. How each of us we have different experiences of what we prefer, what we don't prefer, what we like, what we don't like. But one thing that I actually wanted to ask with that exploring is because the thought that came to me, because I think in many ways it's kind of the world that we live in, that everything you do must have a purpose. If you now do Muay Thai, everybody's like, are you gonna fight? Is that your new career kind of thing?
Yes.
And I think it can get in a way of exploration, because then it's like, well, why am I actually doing it? What's the purpose of it? Or what's the practical way how I can utilize it now that I'm doing it, instead of just exploring? I think there's that kind of that, like, everything must have purpose, must have reason, everything must be efficient, optimized, and the whole thing. How to get past that? Because I think a lot of people might have it, or at the very least they'll be like, what if it's a waste of time?
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think back on your other story, one of the big things is that your friend was there who's been swimming. So she held you accountable. So when you're going through these
Or
challenging
she didn't tell me anything. I was on
no,
my way
but like
out.
presence there, her presence
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah. That definitely I was like, I don't want her to waste her time and sit here just 10 minutes. I might as well go back in. Yeah, agree.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then when you're really getting to that point of like, what, like, why am I, how am I optimized? Like, so for me, for Muay Thai, it's a 6 a.m. class. Like, I was having an issue waking up in the morning. So I was like, this will hold me accountable to that. So sometimes you have to do a reframe. And then some of the time it's just, hey, like, like, the biggest one for me with the Muay Thai was I would literally walk like around my neighborhood, and there's like if you go down the major streets, like there's some homeless people, and I'm like, if a homeless person attacked me, like what would I do? Not saying they attack, but like things happen, and I'm like, I would walk around with my like water bottle, and I'm like, I'll protect myself with the water bottle. But then I started to realize I'm like, I need this skill set for myself because it will give me more confidence. So my biggest thing to anyone struggling with, hey, is it optimized as this? You get so much more confidence in yourself when you do hard things. So by going through these challenges, you're able to overcome a lot of this. And what ends up happening is it's not so much cool, now I'm a professional fighter, or cool, now I'm a marathon runner, or cool, and now I'm this. Like, yes, you can identify that, but it's, hey, I'm Jordan and I'm a holistic individual. Like, I've tried out all these different things. And that's why one of my keys to life is trying to get a holistic perspective. So what I mean by that, it's understanding everyone. So by talking to you, you're in Estonia, like you have a completely different experience, I've never even been to Estonia. So I'm like, that's a completely different life experience than I've ever had. So I get to learn from that. So the point being here is that there's no waste. Nothing you're doing is a waste. The only waste you're doing is maybe watching television, unless it's like, you know what I mean? Like, we're being completely honest here. Like we all spend time doing it, and it's totally fine. But we do it to provoke a feeling. Like, I last night we watched I picked up Madison from the airport because she went on a business trip, and then we went to dinner, and then we watched a movie, and it was a thriller movie, so it was kind of scary. But what did it provoke? A fear emotion. You know what I mean? Because we want to feel these emotions. Do I feel that same feeling when I'm at Muay Thai and there's a guy who's bigger? Absolutely. Absolutely. So my point being here is that, like, you can get emotions from the television, or you can get emotions from real life. And when you're getting it from real life, you just feel so much better about yourself, and you feel so much more ready to take on the day. So I would use the new activities to create emotions in your life, because the more emotions we feel, the more we're going to be our authentic selves. And it's got nothing to do with productivity. But in my opinion, I think as you do more stuff, you do get more productive because you're putting constraints on yourself. Like, the fact that I have the 6 a.m. thing, what does that mean? That means I go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock. Okay. What does that mean? That means that I'm not going out all night. What does that mean? That I'm happier the next day. Like, these are all correlated. And we start to realize, like, what kind of lifestyle do we want to create? And a lot of us, from what I've seen, especially with friends my age and everyone, they don't intentionally plan. And what ends up happening is they're like, oh, my friend invited me to this wedding, so now I'm going to go to this place. That's cool. Like, no worries with that. I think that's fun. But, like, is that the only reason you're going there? Like, that's cool. But then you don't plan any of your own trips. You don't do any of your own experiences because you're always waiting on that friend to set it up for you. So, like, I think there's a super valuable leadership and in person ability when you can foster community, when you're able to go and be like, guys, let's all go do this activity. And you can bring friends, you can go do different stuff, and it's fun and it's empowering and it's emotions that you won't feel. And like back to our family topic, if you want to have great connection with your family, do something exciting. Do something a little crazy. Don't do the conventional. And like I don't think the other big thing is I don't think time is relevant. Like I don't think the amount of time you spend with someone is relevant. I think it's the minutes that you spend with them that are intentional and in deep conversation. Like you giving me an update list is, I mean, it's nice, but it's not super relevant. What's relevant is those deep conversations, and that's where you truly get to know people and understand them.
Uh, I wanted to touch on passive versus proactive. It's something that even like what you said about planning or being more intentional. I started to do like last year where Jess Lister has the big ass calendar. I bought like similar stuff where you have the whole year. It
Yes.
like you just can put it on a wall, and I noticed the interesting thing. I would put things on it that I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it or not. I don't know if I'm gonna get there or not. Um, but then there's and I was doing it beforehand for like few years within like the document that I would have with like tracking my monthly and the different goals. A lot of times I would put stuff in there because I know I'm gonna look at it every day, but I would put stuff in there that I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna do it. I don't think I'm gonna sign up for that. I don't think I'm gonna book that. And then the longer I look at it, the more I'm like, maybe I could do it. So maybe I can find a way. And it's so interesting how, and I like to talk about that concept of commit before you're ready.
Yeah.
And I have done it a lot in the last few years, especially. And there's so many experiences that I would not have had if I was like, well, I'm gonna wait until I'm ready and then I'm gonna do them. So many things wouldn't, I would say a majority of the things actually that I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful it happened and I have grown so much from it. They wouldn't have happened if I was like, well, I'm just gonna wait until I feel like I'm ready to do it. And it's so interesting to put it on a wall, and I put different events or different competitions I want to attend or different kind of events or places that I want to travel. I put it in calendar and then I'm like, okay, how do I make sure I actually can get it all done? Like how do I bring it out in reality? And there's something so, it's kind of like, then it's, you start to understand that concept of um and I will want you to talk on that passive versus proactive, but also of intentionally building out the life that you want to live. And that does happen when you are more proactive, you're more intentional. But then let's say if there's somebody listening who might see that, oh, actually, I think I have become passive with my life.
Of
How to
course.
go from that to being more proactive and more intentional?
Yeah. So the biggest one for me was what makes me think about this is 2018. I graduated college. I'm in this job and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. So the new year's coming around and everyone sets new year goals. And I was just like, like everyone's like New Year resolution. And I'm like, I don't like the resolution. Like, I'm good. So I do New Year's goals. And what I started doing there was setting intentional action. So I vividly remember this because this was like the most profound one for me. Where in going into 2019, I set 3 goals for myself. And the reason I'm saying that this, like, it's relevant to what we're talking about, because when you want to get intentional, you have to set the goal. So I think it's setting the goal, it's breaking down the goal, and then holding yourself accountable to said goal. Or if you can't do that, then you get a coach and you get, or a friend or somebody that's like, hey, you didn't do that. And it doesn't have to be like you're a bad person. It's like, hey, we have so many things going on, it's hard to prioritize. So in 2019, I set 3 goals. One was complete all 4 sections of the CPA, which is certified public accounting. It's like an accounting thing. Then the second one was a business, start a business, which was Edwards Consulting. And then the third one was run a marathon. So what I
Those
ended up,
are like three big goals.
yeah, they're big, solid goals, but you can complete them in a year. So the CPA one, I'm going to start off with that one because that one was the most interesting. I ended up doing the goal, right? So I took the goal and I like picked the hardest exam and I took the first exam and you need to get a 70 and I got a 50 on the first time. So the second time I'm like, I'm going all in, like I'm studying, I'm going to figure this out. I ended up getting a 69. And when that happened, I literally realized to myself, I'm like, this is not, why am I doing this? Like, it wasn't that I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm a failure. I just said to myself, what is the outcome if I do this 10 years, 20 years down the line. And the
What made
outcomes.
you what made you ask yourself that question? Because that question in itself is like quite profound.
Yeah. So what ended up happening, literally, I didn't. So the thing was that these exams, you could only take once a quarter. So like it was literally the first one I took at the very end of one quarter. So then I took it like a month later. And then I had to, like, I got the results 2 weeks later. So I had to wait another like 7 weeks. And I'm like, dude, what? Like, and you got to study and it's intense. And I'm like, what is the result of this? And what I realized is that, like, as a CPA, you're able to sign off on audits. And I go, am I ever going to work at an accounting firm? And I go, no. Okay, then do I ever need to sign off on an audit? I go, no. Who am I doing this for? And what I realized was it was just for my parents. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. This isn't me. So I failed that goal and I'm okay sharing that. But I think it's super important to share it because you have realizations by going through the actions of like, I don't enjoy this. This isn't fun. So then what ended
Okay,
up,
before you go to that,
yeah.
the next one, at what point anybody listening, because a lot of times it's kind of like, am I quitting or am I actually redirecting? Like, how do you know when it's the time to give up the goal, or how do you know that, okay, I'm done with this one? Or maybe you have like somebody else that you have worked with might have had similar like experiences. How to know to kind of when to quit?
Yeah. So for me, I still struggle with this. But to me, I think it was really just that evaluation of asking better questions. And you start to ask the question of like, how does this serve me? Is this something I want to do? And a lot of the times from the people I've spoken to, everyone does it through the lens of monetary. Like, so they're saying, how much money could I do if I get this? How much money can I do if I got that? And I don't look at life that way. I look at it more through the way of like, money's very important and it's a tool, but for my own life being like, what do I want? And I started to realize, and this is where I started having all the things of like, I want a remote life, I want to have these cool travel experiences. And I realized that job wasn't going to fulfill that. So I go, this isn't aiding the dream. And a lot of people just have a dream with their business or they just have a dream with that. I have a life dream of how I want to live. And so for me, that realization there of asking the different question of like, in 20 years, what is this going to mean? And it's like, it meant nothing to me. And when I realized that, I was like, I'm good. I'm good. Move on to the next. So then I started getting into the coaching. The only reason that happened was because I set the goal for myself, but I went to a conference. So I went outside of my circle. Like I met different people. Everyone there is selling. I'm like, what is selling, man? And I'm like, I got to learn how to sell. So I started helping people with financial literacy, debt management, and now there's coaching groups and I do one-on-one coaching as well. And that for me was such an empowering thing because I'm like, I'm earning people's trust that they are learning something and they're gaining value through what I am providing. And now I have a service to provide. So that was just a very empowering one. I'm still doing that to this day. And then the last one was the Lake Tahoe Marathon. What ended up happening was I didn't just pick Lake Tahoe. There was like 4 marathons. I was like, do I want to go to Key West? Do I want to do Chicago? What one do I want to do? And I looked and I was like, the Lake Tahoe one sounds so cool. I was like, how cool would this be? And then what ended up happening was I signed up for it. My parents ended up flying in. And I signed up for it, I want to note, in like April or May. The race was in October. So I wasn't trained for it yet. I was just like, I got to do this. And I ended up doing it. And then me and my parents flew in. We ended up going to Napa Valley, which is like the wine country in California. Went to San Francisco, went to Alcatraz. And it's an incredible memory I have. Like, it's an amazing memory of like the time we spent together. And so my point being is that time never would have been accomplished because probably what would have happened is they would have came and visited and we would have done the same thing we do in Tampa every year. So it's not that one's right or one's wrong. It's just you can create incredible experiences in your life if you're intentional. And by intentional, I mean, it's what do you want to accomplish and what do you want to do? And it was funny, like my mom came and she was like, we finished the marathon. It's only like 1,000 people. And she's like, I didn't have a sign or anything. Like, I didn't even realize people brought signs to marathons. So then 2 years later, I did the New York City one with my brother. And my mom had the biggest sign, and we had names on our shirts, and there's thousands of people. And it was an incredible time. But it's you only create these experiences by including others. And then if you're able to get multiple of these pillars in, where it's mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, I think that's such an aid. Like, so for me, with the New York City one, It's one of the biggest ones in the world. And I invited my brother. So now me and my brother are doing this shared experience together. Then we had to raise money for Colorectal Cancer Alliance. We had to raise 8 grand. So now we're doing community service fundraising. And then we're also running. So it's relationships, physical health, and community service. And I'm like, damn. And it's also my mental health. Like, because when you're running more, you feel better. So it's the more pillars you can touch on with one activity, the better you feel about yourself. Most activities we do are one dimensional. Like, and that's why I think it's so empowering when you're able to find these things that touch on multiple areas of your life, but you don't understand that framework if you're not looking for it. But like my brother never would have ran a marathon if I didn't invite him. Like, you know what I mean? None of these things would have happened if I didn't put myself out there and be like, let's do this. Like, this is cool.
I wanted to touch on that community piece because it's something that I also experienced with the, or like I had my closest friend pretty much like have that. We ended up breaking up that episode in like 3 episodes, going through my whole like half Ironman journey, and so she was able to see everything behind the scenes leading up to it because we live in the same city, so we often would meet up, or she would join to workouts, and she would be, hold up, I'm not doing this, I don't have to suffer, like and but then also like she was able to see behind the scenes. And then I had my brother and his partner, they came over and for the race, and they had like this they made this like whole experience because they also did the sneaky thing, which I'm still not over how genius it was. In my running piece, they would show me with the sign, they would show me the time, but what they did is they showed me slower time than I actually had. So as I'm running, I'm calculating, okay, I'm safe with time. And I think with the last stop, I asked them what's the time, and they weren't ready. So they shouted out, like, I think they said like 7 hours 40 or something. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I easily gonna finish it because the deadline is 8 hours.
Yeah.
I run in the finish, I look back and it's like 7:47. And I was like, wait, like, and I was confused about the time. I expected 7:50 something, maybe like closer to 8 hours. And then they said, like, we have been doing this thing where we just like show your time as slower. Even though I was like ahead like
I
15
love that.
something minutes.
Love
And I
that.
was like, oh my gosh, that's so genius. But also they would be like singing. I don't have that sound. I want to put it somewhere in the background. They had this like boat, and it said, who's going to carry the boats? And then
Yes.
they also had one sign that said, what would Goggins do? And, and like my brother also, like as I was running by, and I have compilation of this because they did it with my first half marathon. I actually have one of the medals they gave me, this
Yeah.
one, because with the first half marathon, actually the week before the race, so the 3 hours is the deadline. For the first time ever, I ran the half marathon. My time was 3 hours 24 minutes. So I'm 24 minutes over. What's the deadline? And I have 1 week until the race. And I said them like, I don't know if I'm gonna finish it on time, and if you don't finish, like, you don't get the medal, stuff like that. And I didn't even know that they're gonna come, but they came at the finish line, and I got my medal, so I finished it on time. And they gave me this medal as well, so I got 2 medals.
I love
and
it.
and then they had like a bag with like drinks and like bananas and stuff like that. And it's something that when we did that episode on half Ironman, I think my friend asked me something along the lines of like, what's your favorite part, or stuff like that. And I was like, it actually has been the people in my life, because even like my brothers, they would check in, or they would answer to some of my stories that I would post, or sometimes with Garmin, if I do indoors bike, I don't add the distance, and then my brother comments being like, put your distance in, or like you gotta stuff like that. Or if my pace is up, my brother would comment like, oh, your pace is going up, like that kind of stuff. And something about that, it makes it much more fun, it makes it much more enjoyable. And even though I do find a lot of value in kind of that suffering alone, and you learn a lot about yourself, you go within, but also I find it just as valuable, if not more valuable, to have that community piece, because those people, they make it fun, they make it enjoyable, they make it, and also you share those memories. I think that's the most beautiful thing about it is sharing those memories. And it was just so interesting to talk to her because she was telling about their experience. Because when I was running, they would be like, you got this, go, run, run. And they don't know that in my transition from the bike, I couldn't move. My back was terrible. I had terrible pain. I literally was moving like this, and I had to change my shirt. And I had to change my shoes, my shirt. It took me 11 minutes to
Oh
do
wow.
that. That's how bad it was. But they don't know that. I ran out and they're like, come on, Oster, run. You got this. You got this. And it's so interesting. Then we align those stories and it's like, yeah, you had no idea. Or when they would see that I'm walking, what I did with the half marathon, because I had calf injured, I would do it where I run 50 breaths and then I walk 20. And I did that. And then as I'm in the walking like phase and they are next to me, they're like, run, Oster, run, Oster. I'm like, I have this strategy that's been working. But I don't have time to explain it to them. I'm literally running by them. But it's so interesting then when we align those stories. But can you talk a bit more on that, like importance of having the right people in your corner or having that support and that sense of community, and what is the role that it plays in getting to that next level, getting better and improving yourself and your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I first of all, I love those stories, and I love that your family had that experience because if you didn't do that, then your family's like, oh, like what's going on? Like, no one they're your biggest cheerleaders, and a majority of the time, like you just got to be appreciative of that because there's so much stuff going on in the world. So focus on somebody else is like such an empowering thing. Um, one, and then two, to the other topic, like how does community play a part in my life? So for me, it was me going through this experience of realizing that I would go out and like living in Tampa, I still had the same friends, same people, same all that. And we would just have the same conversations. And I'm like, how do I have better conversations? And I joined this like high level business group. And one of the guys introduced the concept of group coaching to me. And I was like, what is that? How does that work? And so he's like, come check out the group. So I checked out the group and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like you can bring everyone together. They have different perspectives. And it's even better when people don't know each other because then they're more vulnerable. And so I started this coaching group probably 4 years ago, the Monday night group. And I've been doing that and I'm bringing guest speakers and we do this whole thing. And it's really just a cool way to like hold everybody accountable because here's the thing, we're all on our own missions, but we're doing it together, which is the cool part where I think we're all aligned in those said missions. And that's why I think community is one of the biggest things. And like for me, I started the Thursday group like a year ago, and that one has been in development. But at the same time, like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do this group. Like, I don't know if it's going to go well. And then you do it and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm literally texting Madison. I'm like, I feel like I'm on fire. Like, let's go. So that's a big test for me is literally sitting there and going, like, what fuels you? Like, what do you do? And you're like, I have more energy. So when I do that and I text Madison, I'm like, I feel excited about this because it allows you to have deep conversations and realize that we're not alone. And so, regardless of what it is, I think everyone needs to find some community. A lot of people are doing it through run clubs, a lot of people are doing it through Facebook groups. But isolation is like one of the biggest fears going on right now. Not a fear, but a reality. And that whole isolation thing is a huge, huge issue. So, if you're able to remove that from your life and you're able to find those groups and those people, I think you're going to find that the existence you're having is going to go up exponentially because the thing is what we don't realize is that a lot of the time when we're speaking with each other we're able to be more authentically ourselves and we're not judging anyone because we're like I don't know all she like I know her, I know what she does, but like why would I boo her? Why would I like if she's like I have a big win, hell yeah, like you were telling us yesterday the bronze medal and I'm like yes, like that's exciting. I don't know what that means but that's exciting, like you know what I mean? Or someone's like I got a huge deal, yes, great. Someone's like I got a big commitment, great. But like if you share that in any other environment it's like oh, Miss Glody over here wants to share all her wins. Like, I don't have anything to share. I feel kind of shitty. So it's like you got to be around the right people. You got to be around the people that are motivating you and lifting you up because that will open up a lot of doors for you and allow you to step into authentically who you are.
How do you, with what you said, it sounded like with your friends that you started to outgrow them. And it can be a place that can feel frustrating because in some ways it's kind of like you see potential in people around you. You see that they could be on similar journey, they could be on the journey with you, but at the same time, like everything, you can't force somebody to do something they don't want to. And maybe it's not part of their goal or part of their vision. And but it can be frustrating, especially when you enter that no man's land where you now have you have been outgrowing your people or like people in your life, but you don't really have the next group that you can relate to yet. How to deal with, or do you have any advice from your experience or people that you have worked with outgrowing people in your life?
Yeah, so the way I did it is I don't know if it all depends on the person, right? So there's different areas and different things. So like I had a friend and he's still a really good friend of mine, but at a time he was doing like going out a lot and I was more like let me learn, let me do all this. So the way we stayed connected and it was a very optimal way for me was we would work out together or we would play tennis or we would do whatever. But my point being is that you don't have to get rid of people. Like you can, or you can change the structure in which the requirements make sense. So like you might have someone that's a roommate that's like a really bad roommate and you're like I can't be friends with that. Like it's not that you can't be friends with them, you just can't live with them. And then if it's like I can't go out with them, maybe it's I can go do this with them. And that's where I found the biggest success because you start to align your vision and your values of what you carry and who you are, and they'll stay with you or they'll be like, I don't like that. And if they don't like that, cool, no worries. Like we'll move on. Like there's 7 or 8 billion people on the planet. I'm sure you'll find someone that you like. like so the whole point being, and then the other one that exponentially helped me was I joined that high level business group. I'm talking like I was the youngest one in the group. Most of the guys were like 40 or 50 years old. It was like it was like a 5-figure thing to get involved. It was like a big deal. But my thought was, I'm like, it's COVID. I need to learn. I need to get around the right people. And it's one of the most beneficial things I've done because you can pay for communities, which is the biggest hack in nowadays. I think is that you can just someone else took all the time, set up the whole thing, and you just get a join. So like that's sometimes what it requires. And like another easy way to do that, if you don't want to go like that route, you could just do. We were working out at our condo gym, and me and Madison are like the max dumbbells there are 70s. So I was doing flat bench 70s for like 3 years. And note at that point, I could get up to like when I was going to the gym, I could get up to like 100. So I wasn't like really pushing myself. So they opened up a brand new gym down the street, and I'm like, let's go to this gym. Start going to this gym. Not saying we made a bunch of friends, but we've definitely worked out a lot harder and we're going more consistently and we're like more. And it literally all it is it's you pay a little bit of money and then you're a part of something like and you get to learn from that. And I think that's putting yourself in uncomfortable areas because the first time I went in there I'm like everyone looks like a bodybuilder here, it's Gold's Gym and everyone's just it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's thing, everyone's massive, and I'm like all right, now I have to lift more weight, now I have to be a little bit better, now I have to get to that next level. So when you're even if you're not talking to them but you're surrounded by them, you're like oh this is what it takes. I think that's massive. And it really comes down to picking new spots and picking new experiences.
One thing that I can add to that is that in my experience, like I wanted to say like when I was growing up, as if I'm old, I had these like thoughts of I need to have kind of only like-minded people or only people like me. One thing that I have learned with my closest friend, we're so different, so very different. Um, well, first of all, she's not really into like training like I am. That's why when she would join me for a workout, she's like, "Oh, I'm not the one training for half Ironman. Let's go. I'm just gonna sit on the side." Or she would like film some of the clips for me, and I didn't even like ask her that. But I think what's important in relationships is to understand the other person and accept them as they are and try to support them in becoming the person they want to be. And it actually what I have learned is actually valuable to have people that are different from you because they can
Yes.
balance you out. Like she has been helping me a lot with even simple things as like rest. Go for coffee somewhere. Let's meet up. Let's just like go to spa or something like that because I'm usually like go 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 go. And then when I have somebody who is quite the contrast, she can then introduce me to another world or like another kind of perspective, and we can challenge each other in different ways.
Yes.
And it's been really interesting experience for me, because I always thought like, well, for me, like the people that I need to have in my life, they need to be exactly like me. We relate on kind of like on everything. And that's actually another point, is that it's so funny how like when I joined my basketball group, like my team, I I had no idea what they're doing until we went, like, we had like dinner together and we were talking, like, what do you do? And that kind of stuff. Because we were just like talking basketball. We just show up, we do our practice, and then we leave. And it was so interesting where I'm like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's so interesting how you can still connect with I would spend, I think by the time we all went to like dinner together, it was probably like 2 months. So
Of
we
course.
spent 2 months together. You feel like you know the people, and then we talk, and it's like, oh, you did this and you did that, and you actually connect where you don't need to be, not always be super in depth to actually connect. You can connect over one thing, and that is the thing that
Yes.
kind of puts you to, or like gets you together. Because like it was so funny. I remember I was sitting and I'm like, it's like I don't even know these people, even though I feel like I've been spending so much time with them. But they just have fun. We play games, and then also through that we get to know each other also from different angles, because one setup is the basketball, something else is if we go in a tournament, or if we now like go out, or whatever might be the case. So it's really interesting, kind of how many different relationships, different depths, and different areas you can actually cover. Because I think it's that assumption that even like with your life partner, that that person has to be the person that I spend the time with, or we do everything together. It's like maybe they don't like to do what you like to do, and you have some friends that you can do it with. Or like, let's say if my partner wouldn't like basketball, it's like, oh, we can't be together. It's like, come on, like, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
I think
But we get to those extremes.
you're bringing up a major point here where first, I think everyone that's listening should find a hobby. Like they should do something that they show up to pretty frequently. Because that frequency is going to get people to know you, and then you're able to do work with people because you're expanding your friend group. The other big thing I think is you're absolutely right. Like people provide value in many different ways, and you just have to have the lens of like, what is value to me? And I think that's one of the biggest things because it's not always monetary. We get paid in many different ways. And once we realize that, we start to see what's out there. You know what I mean? We start to realize that there's a lot of different opportunities. There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different ways. Because funny enough, the same thing happened to me with Muay Thai, where I literally went for 6 months, and one of the guys like, "Hey man, I'd love to like meet Madison," and I'm like, "Madison." I'm like, "What do you mean? How do you even know her name? I don't even know your name." And he's like, "Yeah, we should go on a double date." So then we finally, but now we hang out with them like probably once a month, and it's cool. But I see them every Tuesday, Thursday. So it's just like, what's going on in your life? What's happening with you? And it's just this cool thing where we're able to connect, and then you have enough frequency where you're like, I know this person, like we're friends, and it's this weird organic thing. But making friends is when you're older can be a little challenging. But the biggest way to do that is putting yourself outside your comfort zone, like we just got invited to this couple. We went on one double date with them, and they're like, "We're having some friends coming over tonight. If you guys want to come." And I, like Madison's like, "Maybe, maybe not." And I'm like, "Screw it, let's go." Like, who knows? Because I mean, you can always drive home. Like, who cares? Like, you can always leave. But like, if you don't put yourself in these uncomfortable situations, you don't grow. So that's why I think it's so important.
I actually like what you said about hobbies, because it's one of the things that I read somewhere or heard somewhere, where one of the reasons why it's hard to make friendships the older you get is that in some ways we isolate ourselves more, we have more responsibilities and those take over, but also we don't really have hobbies, we don't really do anything outside of the work or family, so you kind of like get yourself stuck where you don't really meet new people, you don't really do new activities, or again, if you do, it's only like it's for my career, or it's to like, instead of, and it's something that I was reading the, what was the book, The Art of Impossible, where he actually wrote that it's really important for you to have something that you do just for enjoyment. just for
Yes.
enjoyment. There's no goal, no nothing. You just do it for fun. And even like for me, it's basketball. And even though we want to win, we want to accomplish things, it's still, I noticed one day that, first of all, I'm just having fun during the practice. Even like yesterday at the practice, we're just having fun. And I don't think about work. I don't think about stuff I need to do. I'm just in the moment and I'm like, how do I get the ball?
Yes. Yeah, no, and it's so empowering because when you have these hobbies and these different things you're doing, pretty much what they've said is like anything that can get you away, like the phones and the technology and the emails and the contacts and the this and the that, if you could stop the notifications, it's drastically beneficial because there's just so many things we do on a day in, day out basis that are so taxing. And when you're constantly moving in 100 different directions, it can be very challenging. So to have an outlet, it's very healthy for you. Very, very healthy.
I have the last question for you, which again I asked everybody. What is the impossible that you're chasing now?
The impossible that I'm chasing now. I love that. Let me think. I mean, for me, the biggest I, I guess it is. The biggest thing for me is living my authentic self. And what that means, it's really me trying to step into that authenticity. So I've gone through this whole podcast. I told you all these stories of triumph. I am still challenged. I am still working on myself and I am still looking to overcome. But like the biggest thing I'm working on this year is really building out the coaching business. It's building the YouTube. So right now we're at 20,000 subscribers, trying to get that to 100,000. It's the continuous progress in the things that I'm passionate and I care about. Because here's the thing, like you said, we have things we love, we have things we do for work, like things to make money. You have family time, you have activities, you have finance. There's so many areas of life. And if you don't dive into each of them and make the most out of this time when you're on this planet, like, what are we doing? So I would recommend everyone go chase the impossible. Figure out what your impossible is. If you got to talk to Austria, I would do it. She'll help you because you got to get to the point where you're able to at least have a direction. Because that's the biggest thing that's failing a lot of us is that we just don't have our direction and we're just swandering and we're like, I want a new job. And that was the biggest thing for me. It was, I would say I would get a promotion and I'm like, oh, I had a great year. And it's like, you got the promotion in November. How'd you have a great year? Like, you need to enjoy the day in, day out banter. And I think that's what it's really all about.
Quick question with how would you describe or define authenticity?
Authenticity, I think it's being, that's a good question. I think authenticity is feeling that fire, not at every moment, but it's doing things that scare you. It's doing things that light you up. It's being in the moment, it's being present and being showing up. Like you've shown up in different times in your life, right? Like, so you show up half Ironman, post half Ironman. You've shown up in your life when you're like, I can't get out of bed. You've shown up in your life when you're doing a job that you don't love. You've shown up in your life a lot of different times. So I think being authentic is realizing, like, hey, I'm not affected by my outside sources. Internally, I want to feel the best I can. And what does that look like to me? And I think everyone's authenticity is going to be different. Some people are like, my authenticity is sitting down and smoking a cigar. Some people's authenticity is I'm going to the gym. Some I'm training for a Ironman. Everyone's got different authenticity, but I think it's so important to continually learning about ourselves because I think that's one of the things that a lot of us are missing.
Where can people hear about you, learn about you, check out what you offer, your podcast?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. It's Jordan Edwards Business Consultant. You'll find all the links there for the podcast. I'm on a couple different. I'm on all the social medias: TikTok, Instagram. It's Jordan F Edwards, or it's Edwards Consulting. And if anyone wants to, I'll have Austria drop a Calendly link, and you guys can do a complimentary coaching call, and it will be fully focused on helping you get your 5-year vision. And just say you came from Chase the Impossible.
Love it. Love it.